fire Stephanie White yesterday. Like, fire her yesterday. And the reason why is not that Stephanie White is a bad basketball coach. It's not that Stephanie White is a bad motivational speaker. It's not that Stephanie White has done a bad job defending her players. It's not any of that. It's that Stephanie White and Caitlin Clark fundamentally have different understandings of the sport of basketball.
All right, Fever fans, pull up a chair and grab something stronger than coffee, because this roller coaster season just hit another corkscrew. Indiana walked into Vegas hunting for redemption and left with a suitcase full of questions, bruised egos, and a secondhand smoke smell from the Aces' victory cigars. If you thought the Connecticut meltdown was the low point, well, the floor just dropped again.
This Aces versus Indiana Fever game turned out to be. It was an utter nightmare. It started off looking good in the first half, and somebody said, we're looking real good. And I said, well, the only problem here is Asia Wilson at the time, I believe, was 2 of 13 from the field, and the Indiana Fever only led by 6. And I said, Asia Wilson will get hot later in this game, and the Indiana Fever is going to have to withstand that.
89-81. That's the line on the box score, but the story is in the splinters. Indiana clawed to 69 all in the fourth, then watched the Aces rip off a 9-2 run like it was the easiest thing in the world. Championship teams close, pretenders crack. Last night? Crack. Loud enough the rest of the league heard it. Now let's talk about the number that seared into every Fever fan's retinas. 1 for 10 from 3. That makes Caitlin Clark 1 for 17 over her last 2 outings beyond the arc. Folks, that's not a slump. That's a desert. And in that desert, the mirage is a motion offense that keeps promising water but delivers dust.
That's a coaching failure. Holy hell. They still lost the game. They still lost the game, and the worst part about this is a struggling Aces team. This Aces team is not last year's Aces team and in the previous 2 years that were champions. They're struggling. They haven't figured out what they're doing. They're gonna figure it out at some point.
Stephanie White stepped to the microphones afterward like she'd discovered gravity. We need to get Caitlin higher quality looks. Earth-shattering, right? But here's the rub. Every team in this league has had one job since draft night. Make Clark operate inside the arc, body her up, turn her legs to jelly. Coaches adjust. Great coaches anticipate. White's still evaluating. Translation, she's behind.
This is what we got to do. We got to put Caitlin Clark off ball. We need to run a motion offense. So when the defense takes away what Caitlin Clark does best, we have other players that can still perform. So when she does have bad games, we're not completely dead in the water. I think that is the best way to move forward with this Indiana Fever team. Wait, what'd you say? Wait, what? Did you just tell me that Stephanie White went on an interview tour this whole entire offseason saying exactly that? Did you just tell me Stephanie White went on an interview? So how come when Caitlin Clark has a bad game, this team looks like absolute dog shit? How come when Caitlin Clark isn't busy backpacking this team, it looks like absolute dog shit, coach? Just a question. Just a question. What we saw today, folks, I feel bad for everybody that had to sit through that. Everybody that wasted 2 hours and 25 minutes watching the Indiana Fever versus the Las Vegas Aces. I feel bad that we had to sit through that. That was a tough watch.
And no, this isn't a hatchet job on Stephanie's resume. She can scheme, she can motivate. But her playbook and Clark's skill set are playing 2 different radio stations. One's blasting classic pick-and-roll rock. The other's trapped in elevator jazz. The result? Static. Picture this. Clark, the league's most electric transition maestro, is forced to orbit off-ball like a satellite while the motion offense whirs aimlessly. Instead of high screens and early drag actions, we get endless zipper cuts that die on arrival. It's basketball by committee when the committee chair is a once-in-a-generation scorer who thrives on live dribbles and chaos. When the offense stalls, she shoulders the bailout burden, step-back threes with a hand in her face, cross-court skip passes that flirt with turnover doom. 8 of those flirting sessions became turnovers last night, gift-wrapped into 28 points for Vegas. That, friends, is death by 1,000 slingshots.
That was a tough watch. The Indiana Fever lose to the Las Vegas Aces 89-81, running bullshit Stephanie White offense. Let's call a spade a spade. The Indiana Fever lost 89-81, running bullshit Stephanie White offense. But Ben, Ben, the first quarter, folks, let me tell you this right here. Aaliyah Boston had 18 points in the first half. Do you know what happened at halftime? Becky Hammond said, okay, guys, I think I know what they're doing. Aaliyah Boston is just going to slip every screen and get wide open layups. She's just going to slip every screen and get wide open layups. She's just going to slip every screen and get wide open layups. This is what we're going to do. We're just going to switch. Easy money. We're going to switch, and if she gets the ball and she beats us one-on-one, she gets the ball and she beats us one-on-one. But that didn't happen. She did get the ball, and in the second half, she didn't beat us one-on-one. Las Vegas Aces won the halftime adjustment battle.
Remember the quad tweak that shelved Clark earlier this season? If you've been watching closely, the burst isn't quite back. The first step that used to leave defenders grasping at ghosts is a half beat slower. Mechanics ripple upward. When the legs don't pop, the release floats. The arc flattens. The ball clangs. Add in the cough, the eye poke from Connecticut, the nightly mugging she takes at the rim, and you've got a superstar operating at maybe 80% while shouldering 110% of the hype. Mental wear is the hidden bruise. Every swipe, shove, and no-call chips at rhythm. Shooters are creatures of comfort. Right now, Clark's court is a haunted house.
I'm going to start by saying this because Caitlin Clark is, let me just check, she is 1 for her last 17 shots from three-point range. And I uttered this earlier because it was something we saw right before she missed 5 games. Right before she missed 5 games, she was struggling from long range. She's just fine going to the basket. She's just fine pulling up from 12. She's just fine in and around the basket all the way out to about 12 or 15 foot. But her long-range shot struggled right before they pulled her out for 5 games. And I said, is that quad injury giving Caitlin problems again? God, I hope not. I hope not.
Let's not pretend there weren't bright spots. Aaliyah Boston logged 26 points, 18 before halftime, looking every bit the inside anchor Indiana envisioned. But she's living in a parallel universe, dominating the paint while the backcourt sputters. Post touches are helium balloons, fun until you realize the strings cut. Without perimeter gravity, double teams flood Boston, rotations recover, and the paint shrinks by the minute. Championship rosters balance inside-out threats. Right now, Indiana is a seesaw with one kid sitting alone. Then there's the Dewana Bonner absence. 4 games and counting. Veteran glue sticks like her steady play and locker room bark don't show up in analytics columns, but you feel the void. Rotations tighten, roles blur, bench confidence leaks. When reserves eye the scorer's table, unsure if they'll get 3 minutes or 10, synergy dissolves. And synergy, more than talent, wins the dog days of a condensed W season. White's post-Connecticut tirade at referees felt cathartic in the moment, but it also painted a target. Refs are human. Public criticism rarely buys sympathy whistles. Meanwhile, Clark stood silent, her coach intercepting questions like a helicopter parent at career day. Protecting your star is noble. Muzzling her when she can handle herself? That's a different story.
Not even different understandings. What Stephanie White wants to do is not going to work for this team. It is not going to work for this team. What Stephanie White wants to do will not work. And by the way, I'm not saying what Stephanie White wants to do is won't work in general. Won't work in general. Because it has worked. She's had success. But I'm saying what Stephanie White wants to do will not work for this team specifically. And let's take a listen to what Caitlin Clark said. And she essentially exposed that Stephanie White wants them to play slow.
I thought at times we could have played a little bit faster, and I think that's on me, like not conceding in that. We still got to play up tempo. We still got to
It's on me not conceding.
Play fast. But I mean, I thought for the most part we did a lot of stuff that coach wanted us to do, and you know, that wasn't why we lost.
Like, she literally was like, oh, what the coach wanted us to do wasn't why we lost. I'm conceding. I was conceding by not playing fast. What is she saying? Like, this is the most damning thing I ever heard Caitlin Clark say. This is the most damning thing I've heard Caitlin Clark. She didn't even say this about Christy Sides. This is damning. She's saying that she needs to stop conceding and play fast, and that doing what the coach wanted them to do was not why they lost. She said that unprovoked. That is one of the most wild things.
As physicality ramps up, Indiana must choose: amplify the noise or adapt. Lobby quietly behind closed doors, adjust screens, create earlier outlets, build trust with officials through composure. Right now, the optics scream desperation. Some ideas: fixing Indiana's offense, 3 non-negotiables, 1 high ball. Screening early and often, start possessions with drag screens at mid-court. Force defenders to chase Clark downhill before the floor is set. Make the defense decide, trap and leave a short roll, or die by pull-up threes the moment the slump lifts. Second, staggered. Rest manage Clark's minutes like a precious metal. Micro rests, 2 minutes here, 90 seconds there. Keep the quad fresh and the legs lively without losing rhythm. Use Boston-centric lineups to tread water while Clark breathes. 3. Simplify, then layer. Scrap half the playbook for 2 weeks. Run bread-and-butter sets until they hum. Horns flare, Spain pick and roll, pistol action. When timing returns, sprinkle in the motion wrinkles. Complexity without confidence is choreography without music. The WNBA's 40-game sprint leaves 0 margin. Indiana's 6-6 record is middle lane traffic, and the rearview mirror is crowded. Championship windows don't politely stay propped open, they slam. Fans bought tickets to a contender, not a chemistry experiment. Yet hope's not dead. We've tasted the ceiling, that opening night Chicago demolition, the near upset of New York. String together 3 solid weeks, and the narrative flips. But solid requires uncomfortable change, starting with the one holding the clipboard.
Stephanie White, arms crossed, makes no adjustments. Stephanie White, arms crossed, runs nonsensical garbage all game long. I don't even think I saw anything that resembled an Indiana Fever team that I enjoyed watching. From last year, from some games this year, I didn't see any of that transpire at all throughout this game.
Stephanie White faces her coaching crucible. Does she cling to philosophy or pivot to pragmatism? Does she empower Clark to run the show like a floor general with full creative license, or keep funneling her into motion purgatory? These are not off-season hypotheticals, they're today decisions. Championship staffs don't blame turnovers as though they're weather patterns. They engineer solutions. They don't outsource energy to the players. They ignite it. Clark's slump isn't terminal. It's timing, health, and system. But star players must guard their swagger like a crown jewel. She needs a get-right quarter, one of those 9-point flurries in 60 seconds that reminds the league why they double her 30 feet from the hoop. Sometimes the antidote is as simple as the first catch-and-shoot swish. And let's be real, she's 23 with back-to-back All-Star seats reserved for the next decade. The storm looks bigger inside it than from above. A night off social media, a morning with the shooting coach, and a tweak in the offensive menu can turn 1 for 17 into a footnote. Then we're staring at a squandered sophomore campaign, a frustrated fan base, and uncomfortable front office questions. You don't draft a generational point guard to watch her wander like a tourist in her own offense. You don't hype a championship window only to pull the shades before summer.
And Caitlin Clark, by and large, and I don't know if this is Stephanie White channeling her inner Christy sides. This was an issue last year. It's an issue this year. Caitlin Clark is benign in the fourth quarter. And them not trying to figure out a way to get her looks in the fourth is a total failure.
The league, by the way, is licking its chops. Asia Wilson reminded everyone last night why she wears permanent MVP cologne. 24 effortless points while Indiana scrambled. Contenders won't wait for the Fever to figure themselves out. They'll bury them and move on. So, what could the way forward look like? Short term, run the simplified sets, manage the minutes, get Clark 30 free flow touches a night. No thinking, just instincts. Midterm, reintegrate Bonner. Define every bench player's 12 to 15 possession role and keep Boston involved even when doubles fly. Long term, audit the system this offseason. If the motion offense remains non-negotiable, find personnel tailor-made for it, or admit the scheme serves the coach more than the roster. Culture is written in June, not October. The next 10 games will decide whether Indiana's 2025 story is resilience or regret. So, Fever Nation, it's gut check time. Do you believe this is the turbulence before takeoff, or is the fuselage already cracking? Drop your verdict in the comments. System tweak, coaching shakeup, or good old-fashioned patience. And if you're riding with us for every twist of this wild season, slam that subscribe button so you never miss a truth serum breakdown. Ice up, recover, recalibrate. The season's still alive, but only if Indiana decides to fight for it now.